Hey, welcome to Glitters of Life podcast. I am your host Rohit Kokane, and I have got a new episode out for you. And we are going to talk about entrepreneurship and performance thing. Is both are quite needed, and this is an exciting topic because me being into entrepreneurship is something that always excites me. And to talk about this very topic, I have got a very special guest with me. She is April Chavez, and she's the entrepreneur herself, the performance coach, and the podcast host as well. April, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much, Rohit, for having me here today. I'm excited to have a great conversation with you.
Definitely, it is such a pleasure to host you. And what is that which excites you about entrepreneurship? Because this topic is so wide and you had a great career. So I want to know about that particular thing as well. Because what was that particular aha moment you have had on your journey? Because being a police officer to wellness advocate and now entrepreneur, how does that particular sounds to you? And what was the kind of journey you had?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's been a heck of a journey, but with your first question, what excites me most about entrepreneurism is being that creative aspect of ourselves, having the creative freedom to really explore all of these different aspects of ourselves, to dive into learning continuously. When we're busy working for somebody else, we don't necessarily have that time freedom to be able to explore all of those things. And because there's so many different facets with running your own business, you get to learn all of those different facets and buckets, right? And so there's so much to learn. I love learning. So that's a big part of it. Is it easy? No, it's very difficult. So we can talk a little bit more about that and really being able to just take those tiny little steps, one step forward into all of those ventures.
So good to know about that as well, because entrepreneurship is something which excites most of the people because they feel that they are their own boss. And again, but it we have to put in a lot of efforts. There is a lot of hard work. You have to build a team around it, then seek for the right product or service fit, and then get started into that particular journey. So it's totally a vast thing. But I want to know, like, how that particular journey happened to you, being police officer, then started with the coaching, now being entrepreneur and the podcast host as well. So, what was that particular transition moment you had?
Absolutely. So much things are changing, and change is the only constant, right? And
Yeah.
so as I started navigating outside of corporate, outside of law enforcement, so my journey with law enforcement was many, many, many years in the field of concentration on the field of learning about the field of honing in on those skills within it. And for one reason or another, certain things, my life was going a different direction. And so I stepped into corporate positions and really started learning more well, first off, frontline employee, boots on the ground. And I think that that's a really important key factor is when we go into anything, it's important to know all of those different levels.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
at least it brings a lot of value, right? So when we talk about frontline employees, they get the opportunity to experience the business from the ground up, all of those levels. And so I started there with all of the positions I went into, and then started moving into more leadership positions, managerial positions. I said that right. And so exploring all of those things. Now, when I stepped out of that, I started figuring, what is something that I can really do that excites me on things that I love. And when I stepped into entrepreneurship, um, health and wellness has always been at the forefront of my
Yeah.
life, regardless of those other career fields that I chose. And it has been because I have an autoimmune disease and I've had it my entire life. So, learning how to take care of myself in the best way to be as healthy as I could has always been a lifelong venture, so to speak. And so, I knew that it was going to be in that. And then the show came about because when I started thinking about, well, there's all different ways you can show up as an entrepreneur, speaking, coaching, writing
Yeah.
books. There's so many things. And coaching didn't really sit right with me. I wasn't yet ready. I had done a little stage speaking, but I wasn't really ready to go full forward with that. And when a good friend of mine said, April, would you like to learn how to run your own talk show? Now, this woman has been doing it for 30 years. She's very seasoned, she's very loving. And when she asked me that, I said yes, because it was very appealing to me to be able to learn from others, to grow from others, to hear their stories, to be able to share that with the world. And we live in such an incredible day and age where we get to do that. We have these
Yeah,
shows,
yeah.
we have these podcasts. YouTube is about to surpass Google as the number one search engine, or at least last I checked it was. But the point is we have the capabilities of sharing our stories and all of this incredible aspects of ourselves to teach and educate others.
So true, April. And you did talk about doing that particular groundwork because it is very important. We can't just get started with the titles and labels. It's more about the experience you gain and then get those particular titles and labels so that you grow up into the ladder. And again, the podcasting thing is quite easier as we are able to connect with a lot of people and gain value because there are a lot many stories which are unheard is what I believe. And again, such conversations bring the stories out to the people so that they can learn more and more about it. And as we were talking about the groundwork, so we are talking about the entrepreneurship as well. So, what would be your opinion? Like, should we be joining a company or should we be starting a company first? Because that is something that we have to be very careful about.
Absolutely. And it will always, of course, be, your own individual journey, the things that are happening in your life, the decisions that you make. I mean, stepping into entrepreneurism, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it because if you have financial backing, if you pull out a loan, if you do these things, where you're more set for success, if you already have people in alignment with you, people that you're connected with that are able to help you and support you. It really just depends on what you're doing, where you want to go, things like that. A lot of it is true. Are you ready to branch out of your comfort level? Because if you're not, then entrepreneurism is not for you. There is so much stepping outside of that comfort zone, stepping into the unknown that you have to be okay with exploring. You also have to be okay with many, many, many failures because
Yeah.
that's part of the essence of it, that's part of the game. And so you have to have an understanding and be okay with that and have an agreement with yourself. And many people say it takes 3 years to really start really building that business, start building the foundations and rooting yourself into the world, whether it's a brick and mortar or whether it's something that you're doing outside of that. Most of us are doing stuff virtually now, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that it's very, very similar. Give yourself this massive time frame. One of the smartest things that I had that somebody told me once was, April, look at this as a 7-year plan. If you're going to go into it, commit to 7 years. And so, what also is that committing to? That's committing to accepting the failures. It's committing to, and I'm talking failures in all different ways. The
Absolutely.
long nights, the tears, the frustrations, the battles of learning uh, this all of the different aspects of business. With for me with the show, it's learning how to show up virtually. It is learning the algorithms. It is learning what to say and who to say and all the connections and reaching out to people that if they say no once, you reach out again
Yeah.
and again and again. So it is really stretching yourself in an incredible, incredible way.
Absolutely, and it's more about like being getting comfortable with the kind of work you are doing, so that you get used to that particular process, and it is something that we have to put our heart into it because, as you said, like you need to see that particular cycle. You can't just get demotivated, like you're not able to make sale in like first few months. You just have to keep doing. You just have to see what kind of efforts, what kind of strategies that you can develop, so that the process gets a lot easier. But we have seen that now the companies are quite easy to set up. Each and every person wants to be his or her own boss. But there are companies who have been into place or being existence for like 10, 20, or 50 years. So what do you think about that particular component as well? Like, what's your vision on building companies like that particular thing? So if we take an example of Nike or even for Microsoft, these companies have been existing for a period of longer years. So what's your vision around that?
Well, I think that again, change is the only constant, and many companies, as we're coming out of the global pandemic, right? And
Yeah,
so every company has had to shift gears, and so every company is doing things a little bit differently, and so culture shifts are also happening within those companies, and so again it's really in what are you in alignment with. I think that all of us have to really start to come clear on what it is that we desire. We have to reevaluate our values and if it's matching and aligning with our company's values, because it's all certainly shifting and
yeah,
changing. And so I think the companies that do the best and have the best performance is when they have the people first philosophy. And so when we nurture our the people that work for us, the people, it's a team, and it's building this culture of really emphasizing that everyone matters, that everyone has a part in it. I think that when you allow people to have a piece of the game, some of the best things that I've heard that I really really loved is when people and cultures are creating the um, a part of the company. They feel like they are a part of it. They feel like they're in development with it. And so what was the word I was looking for? When you have like a vision for the company and everybody has a piece in that and they start to visualize what they also want to do, it brings this sense of pride
yeah,
and acknowledgement that they are a part of it. Everybody wants to feel seen and heard and acknowledged, and so that's a huge piece in it. I think also time freedom, because we live in this digital age so much, because we've gone through the global pandemic where we have had to switch gears and work more from home. I think people really loved that time freedom. And there's so much that we can do outside of the brick and mortar. And I think that companies who are really allowing that and allowing, as long as people are getting the job done, and the performance level is good, then why not? And it brings more of a balance to the work life
yeah.
aspect.
So true. And as you rightly said, that we have to see like what's there for the people out there who are working with you as well, so that for them it's also again a kind of opportunity, so that you they can contribute to your own goal as well. So we have to see that particular part as well. And when we are talking about building people, like having a team around, or building that particular momentum with the business, we need people together with us, because I firmly believe in the effect of synergies. If there are one or two more people with me, I'm able to get that ball rolling into that particular industry, so that each and every person's expertise can be used, and so that we can grow at a very good pace. But then it happens that we get into conflicts with the founder as well, so we just have to be very mindful about that. So what's your take onto that particular part, how we can avoid that? And we have to build that particular dream team. So what would be your approach towards finding that right talent, or the people who are very good at that particular work?
And so, if you're talking about, maybe having some conflicts or disagreements or thinking differently than our peers or the higher up. So, what I often like to revert back to is one of my favorite books is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so much of those habits really take this massive play in how we conduct business, how we navigate through our communication with others. And one of those is seek first to understand. One of those is win win scenarios. And so when we start to highlight those, when we start to have the awareness of those aspects and how we communicate and how we respond to others, uh, it really does help us achieve that win-win scenario, right? And I would say too, we're not always going to get along. We're not always going to be in total agreement. But I think that when at least we come to a situation like that and we're not aggravated or we're not coming at it, butting heads, then it certainly brings so much more fruitfulness to the outcome. And there's a lot of aspects of being able to have a compassionate aspect. And when we meet things with love and compassion, then it certainly helps us show up in the best way possible.
Absolutely, and that is very important because we have to see like how we can embrace that particular compassion. In what way we are compassionate to the people who are working with us and the people who are buying from us, so that it creates a good amount of culture within the organization itself, and that leads to the growth. But again, we have to see that we are attracting the right pool of people, because these days it's getting quite saturated and everyone is into the competition. So we should be building for the right set of customers. And what's your take on like how to be unapologetic about entrepreneurship? So how do you go at that particular thing, being an entrepreneur yourself? And if a CEO has to let go at the certain aspect of his entrepreneurship journey, how would you see that particular thing? Because it is necessary, he or she wants to let go few of the things while doing some kind of work. So how do you see that particular proposition?
Well, when we create our own business, it's our baby, right?
Yeah.
It's our vision, it's our goals. And when we bring people in and if they are not in alignment with the vision, then of course it gets, it's very, very important as an entrepreneur to be able to allow others to do work, to make sure that you're not doing everything, because you need to hone in on the skills that you're really good at in order to create this incredible thing that you want to create, right? And to delegate the other things outside. And so what's challenging is there becomes this control factor because you have this certain vision, and then you think and you see that somebody else sees it a little differently, and they're creating a little differently, and they're doing things a little differently, and so that can rub us the wrong way, right? So what I would invite people initially is to avoid this from happening altogether, is to really have an incredible intake process. So when you're hiring, make sure that you're asking the right questions, that you're in alignment, that they are being a part of the vision and they feel like they're a part of the overall goal and the big picture.
A really great approach, I must say, April, because when we think about people, when we think about how we want to establish a kind of a principles or ethic into our own business, this kind of advice will totally come into picture. Because we have seen that people just want to get started, they don't have any kind of a strategy, they don't have any business plan, they don't have worked on their own vision as well, and then
Mm.
it becomes quite difficult to carry on to that particular process. It gets difficult to navigate certain kind of situations where you don't know how to deal with that particular circumstances. And again, at that particular time, you can't just go and ask random people out there for the help. So you just need to be aware of like what you are doing, how you can deal with those situations, and then create that particular pathway for your journey, which is going to be a very exciting one. But we have seen that there is a common notion that is floating into the industry, and people do talk about like you have to disrupt the market to be innovative. So do you believe into that particular thing? Because I don't find like there is no need of bringing that particular disruption to be innovative into that particular journey. So what's your take on that?
I believe that some of the smartest things that you can do as a business owner and as an individual in general, no matter what you're doing in the world, is to really kind of get your hands in and learn a little bit about the technology that is advancing at an extraordinary, rapidly rate. And
Yeah.
so the reason is because that is what the world is going to. And again, change is the only constant, right? So if you want to ride along with that, then get on that train. And so the other thing that I would say and invite is, again, such an incredible day in history or time in history where we get to utilize it as a resource, a very, very powerful tool. Now, you talked a little bit about people don't have a business plan written. So let's take that as an example. Uh, right now, AI can help you write that business plan.
Yeah.
As long as you learn how to communicate with it, and you're going to have some incredible stuff happen for you very effectively. We use AI all the time, every single day for our business, and it helps immensely. So, stepping into if you're considering becoming an entrepreneur, this is one of the best times to do it. And one of my visions, what one of my hopes for our world is that more people do start doing that, because I believe that when we step into that creative aspect, like I said in the beginning, that's one of
Yeah.
my favorite parts, is that creative freedom and that passion, right? We all have gifts, we all have something that we're very passionate about. And and because of that, now we get to make things so much easier. We get to ask, hey, can you help me write a business plan? How do I do a business? And it lays it out beautifully for you, where we did not have that before. We had to go somewhere, we had to ask for help, which you should do anyway, because building a community is key, and having people that you look up to and can help you is very vital. But there's so much that we get to do on our own now, and it takes that fear factor out, and it brings in this I can, and this encouragement and this power back to us.
Definitely, and it just redirects us to that particular part. We get kind of a new thinking with the help of AI, so that we can see like how we can do things differently, so that it becomes easier. And that is something that we have to learn with the kind of emerging technologies that we are able to see, so that again, we don't have to invest a lot of time into it. It's quite easier. You just have to put in the right prompt so that you get better results and see how you can apply those particular things. But again, we are talking about entrepreneurship. I believe that customers and users are really the backbone of any kind of a business that we are doing, whether be it goods or services. So, how we can understand them? What's your theory behind? Like, so if you have to sell something, if you have to make a kind of a give a kind of a service, what's the importance of understanding their needs? And if it happens that a deal doesn't get closed with you, it happens with each and every individual. So how do you handle that particular part as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, our customers are key, right? We don't get
Yeah.
paid without our customers. And something that, what you start considering early on when you think about what business I want to do, how I want to show up in the world, is really creating that customer avatar, which happens to be looking in the mirror. More often than not, your customer is going to be someone exactly like you. So when you start looking at that way, what are the things that you would love to see? What are the things that are going to attract you as a person? And that's your customer. And then how would you want to be treated? How do you want to show up? How professional do you want to have this engagement? And again, going back to love and compassion and having that approach to everything that you do, with all of the connections and the touch points. There's many researches, studies that have been conducted, and if we consider the healthcare field right now, where people don't feel like they're heard or they're
Yeah.
cared for because that compassion and love aspect is gone. There's too many touch points. So, for instance, with different people, like if you go into the hospital and you're met with the intake, and then you're met with another intake nurse, or and then you meet with a doctor, and then you meet with another doctor, and because you're telling your story so many times over and over and over, you don't feel like you're heard or listened to. And then, so
Yeah.
that's just an example of, maybe a good
Definitely.
one, maybe not, but if you consider that within your own business, this is how people want to be, you know dealt with. They want to feel loved and heard and listened to. All of business decisions, all of when somebody purchases something, it is based on emotion. It's an
Yeah.
emotional response, and so you have to go and meet that need first.
Definitely. And when we are talking about the customers or the users, you won't be able to convert each and every of them, but you get to know like what they are expecting and how you can provide those particular things. Again, it depends on the kind of products that you are selling or the services you have in place. And again, the budget they have, because that is the constraint with each and every individual. But if it makes the lives easier, again there will be buyers and the users for your products or services. So that is a great point you mentioned. And April, I want to know from you, like, did you always had that insatiable curiosity with respect to doing each and everything in your life? What was that particular thing? Because again, I have seen you being transitioned into a lot of areas. So how did you come up with that thing?
Uh, well, I'm always learning and always growing. And most of that is default from failures, challenges, heartbreaks. And so, no, I don't feel that I've always met things that way. I think, just like all of us, I continue to evolve and expand myself. And especially as I continue to learn, I think that when we have the perspective of life in that way, that our challenges and our experiences are there for us to learn and grow and evolve from, then it will happen. And it does happen. It's a lot easier, right? Having that perspective. And, yeah, Rohit, it's been just really just with so much learning and research and understanding. I love science. I love when people are you know, really learning to understand human emotion and human response with a lot of studies that are conducted. So I take that in and I utilize that in order to try to show up the best way that I can.
Such a great way to proceed ahead in your life, because it becomes very important. We need to have that particular faith into us as well, so that we can cling on to that particular rope as we are moving ahead. Because when we are into that particular journey, we never know like what kind of a step that we are going to take ahead into our own journey. It may be a failure, it may be a success, but we don't have to really bank upon the outcome. We just have to keep doing that particular work, so that we are enjoying that particular work, and then whatever the outcome may happen or come into picture, we just have to be content with that as well. So that is something that we have to learn from you. And are there any kind of companies or brands that you are obsessed with and learning from them, what different things they are doing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my wheelhouse is really in, again, you hear me say it often: compassion, human
Yeah.
evolution. Really, so many of the people that I interview on the Wellness Driven Life Show are people who are really switching. They're changing the world in some capacity, in some form. So, a few of those companies are the Heart Math Institute is a big company I follow. I follow Joe Dispenza. I follow U Earth 2050 and U Ocean 2050. Clint Overs. Oh my gosh, I forget his name. He's also has the Earthing Project and the Earthing Company. So those are all companies that I like to follow, and I like to see how they're showing up and how they're engaging. Something I really love about Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is that he is engaging so many thousands and thousands of people, and he's just vast around the globe and having people engage in brain heart coherence, as well as the iHeart. Uh, or excuse me, the Heart Math Institute and the Global Consciousness Project 2.0. So things like that, where they literally are measuring and they literally have their hands on raising human consciousness, those are the things that I really like to dive deep into.
Good to know that, because there are people who are doing absolutely great work, and I just sometimes get mad about listening to those particular ideas, and people are creating, like they are bringing those ideas into reality. So that is something that always excites me, and I get to learn more about the founders' thought process behind that, and to know like how did that idea came into picture, what did they do to bring that idea into execution. So there is a lot of work that goes behind into that particular thing. And when we are talking about entrepreneurship, ultimately it's about earning money. So when we are talking about money, how do you see to that particular part, like making money versus managing money versus spending money?
Well, again, those are all things that we get to learn, right? And it's a fire hose to the face more often than not. And I think if that is not your strong point, that's one of those things that you hire out for, right? You delegate out to. And I think that that is something that's really, really key. And for us, it has to do with people that we trust. And so when we search out those people that we're going to do business with, where we're going to delegate those things out, especially in the financial sector of
Yeah.
business and all of the legalities, I mean, very, very important when we're considering business, how we approach. I mean, if you even consider email marketing now, there's the what is it called, DMARC. I mean, we have to be, there's all these new regulations that a business has to be compliant in. So the legality aspect is very important. And so aligning yourself with the right people that you trust with your business, then that is very, very important. And part of the ways that we do that is through our connections. And, you know, the people that we align with well, we ask them, hey, who are you doing business with? And I think that really asking those questions is really important. Again, that might be stepping out of your comfort zone to really find out, but seeking out that is going to save you so much hardship in the long run.
I so agree to it. And April, I don't know, like, if you have been asked this earlier or not. People always ask, like, how do you define money? But if money has to define April, how would you relate to that particular part? What's the relationship with money?
Uh, Money is energy, just like everything. We're energetic beings. And the, you know, I think that that is one of the biggest things to understand too. Again, diving into understanding that of which we cannot see is real because we're energetic beings. And I'm not going to go into in-depth science and
Yeah.
details. That's something that everybody should explore. But when you know that money is this energetic flow, and when you start having it do exactly what it's supposed to do, you know, when the I'm not going to say that right, but you know, when there's a beautiful exchange, a beautiful balance of, you know, what you're taking in and what you're giving out, that is when it really comes to alignment.
So good to know that. And it was very deep indeed. And now moving ahead with the performance thing, I feel that you talked about the energy. But again, our performance depends on various factors. Now that we have got a lot of mental pressure into picture, how we can turn that particular mental pressure into resilience for high performance, because it's very important to be performing at a regular intervals and with that particular willingness itself, because the energy level comes down at a very low margin at times, and it feels that we are having no energy to carry forward that particular
Hmm.
work with the mental pressure. So into such situations, how we can turn that particular thing?
My goodness. Well, there are so many different tactics. And so, because that's easy to do, right? Especially if we're, I mean, whether we're in the topic of anything when it comes to our professional lives and our you know, our personal lives. We live in a very fast-paced world, high pressure world. And especially if you are somebody who likes to dive in and you want to stay busy constantly, it can be difficult to really start quieting down the noise, right? To get clear on and to be able to reach more of that high performance level
Yeah.
on a consistent basis. And so a lot of it is really on the things, the way that you navigate your emotional state throughout the day. And when we talk about energetic levels, you know, we are all batteries. And because we're batteries, we have to be recharged. It's just like our cell phone. We have to put it on the charging dock. And we are the exact same thing. And so that's something where I said, Clint Ober, he has the Earthing Project. And so he developed the modem way back in the day, if anybody remembers what that is. But through that, he also realized that if we have to ground our houses for electricity, do we have to ground ourselves as human beings? Well, yes, we do, actually. And
Yeah.
that's what grounding is. That's what the planet Earth does for us. So when we put our feet directly on the ground in the grass, that is us recharging. A lot of science to back that up. That's an example of something. So making sure that we're meeting that every single day, making sure we're well rested, we have enough water. I mean, we can go on and on about all of the physical
Yeah.
aspects of what we do in order to recharge, because we're living in this physical body, this physical experience, and the spiritual aspect is key. And so It's really about going within, whether it's a meditation practice, whether it's yoga practice, but it's coming back to yourself. I learned that early on, actually, when I was a police officer. We learned that, if we have to respond in a life and death situation and I'm holding a gun to somebody because it's their life, my life, everybody else around me's life, how am I going to calm myself down in order to respond effectively? And so that's breath work, learning how to calm down that heart rate. And you can give an example in traffic, right? We can get
Yeah.
very anxious in traffic.
Yeah.
And traffic driving is the most dangerous thing that we do every single day, is getting in a car. So,
Right.
learning how to navigate our emotions and how we respond is really key in order to have and meet that high performance level on consistency. Part of the way that I go with my clients and navigate a high performance level is by calming down that self, going within and working with the subconscious, because the body is a robot controlled by the mind. And because of that, when we start working with the subconscious part of ourselves, or the unconscious, and we start making new neurotransmitters, etc., then we start operating in a different way, a more effective way.
There are not many ways, and I'm going to surely try a few of them so that my performance gets elevated and I just get more productive with that particular thing. But I often see people say that you need to have that willpower. But I believe that willpower alone won't change your life. So, do you agree to this particular statement? Because we are always fed with a kind of a common statement, and you just feel that no, this is something true and it can surely change your life. But willpower is just an element, is what I believe, and it just can't entirely change your life. So what are your views on it?
Well, willpower certainly gives you the boost, the
Yeah.
desire to want to create change, to start creating action. I think that's sort of an essence of willpower, is wanting to take action in something. And yeah, I mean, that's perseverance, that is resilience, pieces of that. And again, it's what works well for you. Because
Very important.
just because meditation works for me in the morning or whenever, it doesn't mean that that is going to be in alignment with somebody on their journey yet, right? And so, what I mean by that is, we all, as we learn and we come into all this information, there's so much information that we have. If we're not ready to dive into that or to accept it yet, then how could it possibly work? That's a perception, that's a belief. And until we start changing our perceptions and beliefs and we're ready to step into that, then it'll work. So, it's a fascinating thing when it comes to the mind and those belief systems, because if I'm smoking every single day of my life and yet I live to be 100 years old, maybe it's because I believe that, this is one of the most enjoyable things for me and it's actually creating longevity. I don't
Yeah.
know. Stranger things have happened, right? But our beliefs are so powerful that doesn't really matter what you do. Maybe, maybe not.
I mean, so true. And again, we have seen that as we talk about willpower, as we talk about any other steps that we can take to elevate our performance, it's very important to understand what is working for you. We can't just say like if it is working for him or her, that's totally fine. But you need to find your own way of like dealing with such kind of performance hacks, because there are a lot many, and again it depends on the kind of discipline you are putting into yourself as well. Unless and until you don't have that self discipline in picture, again I don't see any kind of a growth into that particular area, because it becomes quite restrictive. You're just wanting to think, let things happen to you. That won't happen until and unless you're going to take those actions. So that is something that we have to take into consideration. But again, April, I have seen that these days we are sticking towards digital mediums as well. Like it has become our lives, it has become the source of earning. But again, there is a lot of anxiety that is coming or popping through that particular digital mediums. So how we can manage that to enhance our productivity and the memory as well?
Yes, of course. It absolutely is. When you start putting yourself into all of those different things and you don't control yourself. Now, is it easy to get sidetracked because of it? Yes, it absolutely is. And that's up to the individual to be able to maybe set a timer, or maybe like, okay, I'm only staying in this particular wheelhouse, and also choosing your favorites. I mean, LinkedIn is a very powerful place that I go to because I want to concentrate on that business mindset of individuals, because that's really where we're geared to. And I find keynote speakers there, and I engage in conversations because I like that professional realm. And so, for many people, Instagram is their favorite place, or Facebook is their favorite place. And I just would invite people to choose, one or two of them, and that's where you be. And then again, delegating out the other stuff that it's not your strong point. Of course, we feel and know that when it comes to the algorithms and such, having a strong presence in a lot of those different buckets is important for our business. And at the same time, when we have a very strong presence in one or two of them, that's going to rise us up just as much as having little bits in all of them.
Right. And again, as you talked about that overwhelming aspect and then finding the balance between all of them, I feel that we should be very mindful about what we are doing, what we are seeking from it, and to what extent that we have to carry forward our commitment towards those particular platforms. Because ultimately, we are seeking something, we are giving out there a kind of a content so that it helps people. But again, we have to be very mindful about in what way we can distribute that particular content so that it doesn't get overwhelming for us. Because then right now we have been creating like the pictures and the podcast episodes, and we are promoting it, we have been creating content, we have been commenting and all. So that really takes a lot of energy and time as well, so we have to be very cautious about that. But it's more about the aspirations, ambitions, and the actions we take. So what do you think about these three aspects as well, the aspiration, ambition, and action? So can it turns doubters into believers as well?
Oh, well, I think I might want you to highlight on that just a little bit more, Rohit. But um, what I'm gathering from this is just, what we're putting out on social media and how we're engaging and interacting with the people and the comments. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think that it's very, very important. Again, going back to the clients and the communities that we start to build. I mean, especially in this, when we're talking about our podcast, right? Our shows, and it is in serving the world, right? And so it's when people do engage and they comment, it's very important that you engage back with them so they do feel heard and seen. They're going to keep coming back, and they're going to share what you're doing. And I think too, of course, being really, really, you know, what you're putting out there matters. And I see so many people who are, they're trying to get the engagement on their YouTube channel. They're trying to get the algorithms up, and they're doing all of these things. And I don't feel that some of them are doing it in the right way, or they're really standing by their values. Um, Somebody once said to me, when you get your values in alignment, let's take your top 5 values, right? And when you meet that in every single thing that you do in business, every single post that you put out, all of the wording that you choose to use, when you're in alignment with that, then you're great, right? But when we start going outside of that, and we're bringing in um, unless this is what your show stands for, and it is, but when you start bringing in, famous people, and you start talking, negatively, or if you start bringing politics in, or religious viewpoints, right? And again, unless that's your thing, and that's really what your channel and your thing is standing for, and that's your audience, fine. But if when we start bringing that in just to meet algorithms, and just because we want to grow so fast, I don't think that that's the right thing to do. I don't
Yeah.
like seeing that. And I see it a lot. In fact, I've seen people, go on somebody's show and they're trying to, what they're there for is to explain their book and their story and their passion and all of the things, right? And then all of a sudden they're met with a political question and you just see the life drain out of them and they're like, why? And, it's just, I don't think that that's right. And so I think that, again, going back to our values and meeting that and being consistent with that, then you're going to have more success. And it takes time. It takes time
Yeah.
to grow, especially if you're doing it organically and you're not doing it with bots and you're not working with a third party and where they're doing everything they can in whatever way possible, in every shape and form, to be able to bring you the the exposure.
So true, April, because I have seen that I could relate to that particular politics part. It's the politics season right now in both the countries, I would say. We do have our elections and you too have. So again, it's more of like people want to grow,
Yeah.
people want to put out their
Yeah.
voices and see that how they can get discovered. But it's more about like you need to take that feedback into consideration and see how things can change. So what's your way of like finding wisdom into the feedback? Because at times when we receive some kind of feedbacks, even with respect to whatever I write or the kind of episodes I release, I share to few of my people who are very close to me, who follow my content, so that I can get a feedback from it. So it's more about like at times it may be positive, at times they ask me to do better and better, and our mind will not be in a position to take that particular things in a very positive way. So
Mm.
I feel that we should be finding wisdom into that particular feedback as well. So how do you see to that
Yeah.
particular part?
If you're asking specifically, and I apologize, I have to check my earbuds keep falling out. So uh, feedback is always a gift,
Yeah.
and if that's what you're talking about, and yes, I do think that it is important to ask others what their thoughts are, ask for feedback and genuine uh responses to the things that you're creating and the things that you're doing. That is how we learn and grow and we do better. That's how we improve, is by gathering information from
Yeah.
others and from those around us. And I think, also another way to gain that is by, and we talked about it a little bit, Rohit, earlier, is by watching the businesses and the people that inspire you. They're doing the things that are in alignment with you and you love how they show up. Well, it's okay to copy. Everybody copies,
Yes.
like, part of you can see, although I've switched over a lot of them now, but if you look at our channel, you can see historically the changes, the little tweaks and little changes that are happening in our thumbnails and our flyers and the way that we present, as we learn, because we didn't know, and the flyers in the beginning, they have a lot of information. It's noisy. And
Yeah.
then you start learning, well, actually less is more. And that clean look is a lot better, where I have a little tagline that's, engaging and inspiring and people want to know more. I have a picture of my guest and, maybe their name. But, I think that when we go into something, it's easy to feel that overwhelm and feel like, oh my gosh, I have to be seen. I have to be, but really just consistency is key, period, and how you show up and making sure that something is being presented so you gain that exposure over time. It's a long-term game.
Absolutely, and we are drawing inspiration from the people who we have been following. We are learning from them. Again, it's a long journey, I must say, and we just have to reinvent ourselves. We have to redo things. We have to see what kind of results we are getting, and never stop into that particular journey. That is how we can get better at performance. Now, coming on to the last part of this episode, April, I feel that we have talked about entrepreneurship, the performance thing as well, but there is this EQ and the IQ thing which comes to my mind. So I feel that EQ trumps IQ in the professional world. So what's your take onto this particular thing?
Mm. everything that we do, again, is often based on an emotional
Yeah.
response. And so I would say too, if we don't have that piece of ourselves and we're only showing up as the intellectual piece, it doesn't give the fullness of truly being human.
Yeah.
And I think that that becomes very apparent to our audience and to the people that we work around, the relationships that we have when we don't have that aspect.
True that, and I love that particular approach. And I feel that whatever we do comes with a price. So we just have to be see like what we are going to put our energy into. There are collateral damages and the difficult decisions that we have to take into consideration as well. It's not an easy ride with whatever we are doing, but it's more about like the kind of zeal you have got into your own self, so that it will help you to build the kind of life you are trying to build for yourself, and you are helping others to do that as well. So that was all about that. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, April. It was such a pleasure hosting you on this show.
Oh, absolutely. I hope that I brought value to you and your audience, Rohit.
Definitely. And something that I learned from you, there are a lot of key takeaways where people will be having from this particular conversation. And I hope that they will be learning a lot from you. If anyone wants to get in touch with April, I'll mention her social links in the episode description so that they can reach out to her and have a great conversation as well. So thank you so much, April. And it has been a pleasure. I wish you a very all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you.